Welcome to this video. I'm going to be showing you how to make a simplified version of this animation in Blender. We're going to be doing a few things here. Mainly we're going to be using the for each loop in Blender 4.3 to create some customized scaling animation on each of these cubes. And the way we're going to actually be doing this animation is through a custom little toolset that I'm developing called animation curves. And I'm going to be showing you how to make like a very simple version of this really quickly. So we're essentially going to be inputting a Bezier curve into the node tree and evaluating its Y position, and that will become our scale value. So it's sort of like using curves in the graph editor, but we're doing them with physical curves instead. So it's a pretty interesting effect, and you'll see why we're doing this. It's because we can randomize the parameters of this curve per cube. So let's go ahead and start up in a new file, and I am going to just start in the geometry nodes layout. Let's just start with any object, just as a container. Let's add a geonodes group to it, delete the input, and I'm going to grab a grid node. And if I connect this to the output and view the wireframe of this, you can see that we only have a few points. Each one of these points is going to become a cube, so I'm going to set this to something like 16 by 16, so we'll have like 256 cubes. Let's go ahead and use the new for each node to essentially take each point of this grid and instance a cube on it, but we're not actually instancing, we're just placing a cube on it. So it's going to be real geometry, so bear that in mind, it might be a little bit slower. So let's grab a cube and just connect that to the output here. And now we just have a ton of cubes all overlapping each other, so let's add a transform geometry. And we want to move them to the positions of the grid points. So let's input the position attribute into our loop, plug that into the translate, and now all our cubes are on the correct points. The scale's just wrong. To calculate the right scale, I'm going to grab a value node, and this is going to be the size of my grid, so I'll plug that into the X and Y. I'll grab an integer node. It's going to be the resolution of my grid. Plug that into there. And now if I divide these two, I'll get a sort of ratio that will tell me the size of the cube, no matter what the parameters of the grid are. So now if I increase the grid size, the cubes get bigger, or if I increase the number of points on the grid, the cubes get bigger or smaller. Now what we need to start thinking about is how we're going to animate this, because we really just want to animate this scale component. And you can think if we were doing this with keyframes, say we keyframed this object, and then keyframed it 20 frames later, we'd have a curve in the graph editor. So if we grab like the scale curve, for example, we can say like as the frame number progresses, the scale decreases. So basically what Blender's doing is saying that every frame, what is the value, what is the Y value of this curve, set that to be the scale. So that's what we want to do inside of geometry nodes with a real curve. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's make a Bezier curve, and I'll go into top view, and you want to make sure that this curve only exists in 2 dimensions. It doesn't go in the Z-axis at all, because we're only concerned about its X and Y. So let's just move this handle up, and all this curve is going to be saying, if you imagine this is our scale curve, we're just saying start at 0 and increase to 1 over, this many frames. So let's go into here and drag in that curve here, and I want to do a few things to this curve. First of all, I'm going to resample it to be a length of 0.1 between each point, and this is very important because it's going to control the sort of time step. So you can think of this distance as the sort of distance that a frame would move, so it's quite an important value. Now let's figure out how to read a value off of this curve. The best way I've found is to first of all convert it to a mesh and then convert it to points. Then what we can do is read the position value of each of these points like every frame. So if I sample the index, I want to sample the position of these points. Plug those in there. To visualize this, I'm going to add in a points node, set to 1 point, and use that as the position of this point. So now as I increase this index, the point moves along the curve. So we basically just want to do this as like the frame progresses. So let's just go ahead and plug the frame right into that index value. And now if I play the timeline, you can see that, our point moves along the curve. Basically we're reading the position of the curve at every point on every frame. So yeah, that's pretty useful. We can control the speed of this now using a math node, multiplying the frame number by some value. I wouldn't recommend going below 1 though for like resolution reasons. So if I increase this to 2, we now go twice as fast. So that's a nice quick way to sort of control the speed of the curve. I'll leave that at 1 for now, because you'll notice a problem that after the point reaches the end of the curve, the frame reaches number 24 and we go back to 0. And that's because if we look at the points of this, we have 24 points. So once we reach the sort of last point and the frame moves past that, it doesn't know where to put it because no more points exist, so it puts it back at 0. So we just need to make a condition that says, you know, if the frame is greater than the number of points, then just set it to the end point. And you'll notice that we're on frame 24 where the point has actually already moved to 0 and we have 24 points. So there's a discrepancy of a value of 1 there, and that's just because this index starts at 0 but the point count starts at 1. It's a little bit annoying, but that's just how it works. So let's get the size, domain size of these points. Make sure you set it to point cloud, and that just gives us a value of 24, which is how many points we have. So now we want to say if our speed ramped frame number is greater than 24, then just use the last index. So I'm going to add in a switch node with this as the switch and set this to integer for our index. And if this is false, it means we can keep moving along the curve. If it's true, we want to set it to the last index. So as I now play this, if I view this point, you can see it almost works, but there's a slight problem. We need to account for that offset by using integer math set to subtract 1. And now we'll see that the point freezes at the end of the curve. So we've successfully evaluated this curve the way we wanted to. So now we can separate this position and just grab the y value. That's all that matters. That's the value of the curve. The x value is just the frame number. So let's group all this stuff because we're going to, keep this nice and neat and potentially use this in the future as well. So Control G to group all of this. Let's input that speed parameter and call that speed. Let's connect our output to be this y value, and you could connect this point as well if you want to, but it's just really for visualization, so I'll just get rid of it. And now we have our nice neat evaluate curve group. Let's go ahead and plug that into the scale, and you should see that this does what you would expect to see if this was an animation curve. We basically just, scale these cubes by this curve, which is pretty nice. So now if I change this curve, maybe set it to go back to 0, the scale will go back to 0. So that's the power of this method, really. You can just change one curve and affect the whole system. But now how do we say, change this per cube? So we want to use a random value node, and we want to add one of those in. If I can't just plug it into the speed here, because when we're inside this for each, we need to plug the index into the IDs of our random values. And now you see that I'll make sure the speed's never 0, maybe make it 0.5 to 1. Actually, no, I'll go 1 to 2, so it's never below 1. And now you see some move faster than others. So that's a pretty cool effect already. And we don't have to use a random value for this. We could in fact use something like the distance to like an empty. So I'll go ahead and create an empty in our scene. Go ahead and create a plane axis here, make it a bit smaller, and drag that into geometry node, set it to relative. And now if I take the distance between this position in the for each loop, so the position of each cube and the position of this empty, and then plug that into the speed, you'll see we immediately get something interesting. The values are a little bit weird though, because the distance is going like quite low to 0 basically, so we're going to map the range of that to never be 0, go like 1 to 2, and now you can see like the speed will be faster when it's further away from the empty, because that's just how we've mapped the distance. We could do it to be the opposite of that if we wanted to. We can make it like faster at the center of the empty, which is kind of cool. We could even now go ahead and like animate this empty moving around, which could be an interesting effect. The point is now that the position of this empty is now controlling this animation curve in whatever kind of complex animation we have on this curve, all procedurally. Now we want to make something to extend the front of the curve, so I'm going to create a curve line, and I'm going to make it go in the x direction, the negative x direction. I'm going to set this to direction actually, and change this to negative x, like that. Now we have a curve that starts at the origin and goes outwards, and we just want to place the start of this curve at the end point of our original curve. So let's sample this curve, a factor of 0, its position, there we go. So that's just basically, as we move this along, it samples the position of the curve. We've set it to 0, it'll always be the start. So we have that, and now this length controls like the lead time on this. We just need to merge these two things now. So let's go ahead and join these two pieces of geometry, like so. While we can't merge curves, we have to convert them to mesh first, which is a little bit annoying, but has to be done. So let's do a curve to mesh. And that we need to do that on both of them, so they're both meshes. And now we can do a merge by distance, and now convert them back to curves again, like so. And now we've successfully joined that curve onto here. But there is a slight problem that's not entirely obvious, but if we view our point count in the evaluate node, you'll see that we're missing a lot here, and this is bad because if you remember, our frame only cares about what point it's at, so we basically won't get any lead time here, we'll only get one frame of it. So we need to resample this curve before we join it here, and the length should be the same as whatever you set here, so I'm going to leave it at 0.1. And now if I go back into this node group and view that again, you can see we get more consistent point spacing. So let's group all of that, and let's input this length as a input. I just encountered an issue with this, and basically the issue is that the extension we just put on actually happens at the end of the curve. Somehow the curve got flipped during that process, so I'm just going to add a reverse curve node after this node group, like so. Now I should be able to, yep, the point now starts there, so I can get rid of this node again. That was just for me to debug that. And now we can see that the cubes don't move for a while, they stay at scale 0 as we move along that straight bit of the curve, and then they scale up and scale down again. So, and yeah, we can randomize this value now. So actually, let's try plugging in the distance again from this. So it's sort of the same thing as doing the speed, actually. It's very similar. So let's plug the length, this random value, into the length. And now you can see they randomly offset from each other, which you could never do with keyframes. So that's really why I made this little method. And now let's plug the distance back into the scale and for the speed. So yeah, we get a pretty nice little result. The only other thing I want to talk about is rendering this. So I'm just going to give this the default material here. And I want to give it an attribute. And the attribute I want to give it is this output. And I'll connect this to the output of the for each. Now if I view this in GeoNodes, you can see that we get like this value for, as they get smaller, we have this value for them, which we can use to shade them nicely. So I'll just call this like mask, like so, plug that into there. Now if I switch over to the shader editor, grab our material, I can just attribute read in this mask value, and now if I run this through a ramp and go into rendered mode, I can maybe like increase the contrast a little bit and plug this into the metallic. I found that to be like an interesting little effect. Actually, I'll go into material preview for this and view this. So they should get like shinier as they grow, they become metallic, which is, you know, very abstract but kind of cool. And I'll use another ramp for the color, bit of a color here when they get bigger. So yeah, then we can do that kind of effect. And the nice thing about this now is we can go back to this, you know, initial curve that we had and maybe give it a bit of anticipation before it scales down, make it overscale up. So let's subdivide this curve to give it more points, and sort of like adding a keyframe. And let's just do this and tweak our curve a little bit. So now let's view our animation. And we should get like a bit of a smoother result here as they, yeah, you can see there's like a slight bit of anticipation, and we can increase that effect. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. And obviously there's a couple of things I didn't go over here because it take quite a while, but you could always go ahead and manipulate these curves in any way that you want. One thing that is a good little exercise to do is to learn how to like repeat them, like array them across, and that can be a useful thing to randomize sometimes too. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.